Hello and welcome back to Atomic Adventures. In today's video, I will be giving a presentation on nuclear energy in Pennsylvania. I hope you enjoy. To start off the video, I'll give you a brief introduction to nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is produced by the splitting of uranium-235, which is an enriched form of uranium that emits more neutrons, in a reactor. This process, known as fission, produces tremendous amounts of heat and fission products. Fission products are other elements created as a result of nuclear fission, and some include cesium-137 and strontium-90, among others. The heat from this reaction is used to boil water, which creates steam, and in turn turns the turbine and a generator, which then creates electricity. It's really just a fancy way to boil water. And there are two main types of nuclear reactors. There's a boiling water reactor and a pressurized water reactor. The boiling water reactor pictured here utilizes one loop system. So the steam is taken from the reactor vessel, it's allowed to boil, and then the steam is piped directly from the reactor vessel to the turbine, which spins the turbine. While in a pressurized water reactor system, there are two separate loops. So the water in the reactor vessel is pressurized, therefore it can't boil. So it heats up water in a steam generator, which boils because that's not under pressure, and then that turns the turbine and creates electricity. So the advantages of a pressurized water reactor over a boiling water reactor is the fact that they're two separate loops, so the radioactive steam is separate from these other components. While in a boiling water, the radioactive steam comes in contact with the turbine, which contaminates it and just causes more problems when cleaning up. Cooling towers. The iconic hyperboloid-shaped cooling towers, which are commonly attributed to nuclear power plants, but coal plants also use them as well. They're just great use to cool water. And some don't even use them, but there are two main types. There's the natural draft type and the mechanical draft. So the natural draft works by, there's a series of sprayers and fill, and the water in there below it drops down, and then the steam rises up there. There's little openings on the bottom, which creates a natural draft, so that's how the steam goes out the top. And the mechanical draft system works the exact same way, except it's a lot smaller, it's not as tall, and it uses a fan instead of natural draft. Nuclear energy in the United States provides a big chunk of our energy, 20% to be exact, and it provides around 97 gigawatts of electricity per year. And Pennsylvania alone accounts for over 75,000 megawatts of electricity to the United States. You can see that it's mostly dominated by natural gas and other fossil fuels. Nuclear energy makes up 20% of it. Now in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has long been a large proponent of nuclear energy in the United States. The first commercial nuclear power plant dedicated solely to the production of electricity in the United States was the Shippingport Atomic Power Station in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, which is near Pittsburgh. On December 18, 1955, it distributed its first electricity to the grid. And there are currently 4 active nuclear power plants and 5 that have been decommissioned in Pennsylvania. Pictured here is the 3 Mile Island nuclear generating station, which has since been renamed to the Crane Clean Energy Center, which actually is set to reopen in 2028, which will be the first reactor in Pennsylvania to undergo a recommissioning. And finally, nuclear energy provides over 25% of Pennsylvania's electricity, so it is a very important component in Pennsylvania's grid. So pictured here we have the Peach Bottom 1 unit-run reactor, which was an experimental high-temperature graphite moderated reactor. And this was the second commercial reactor commissioned in the United States, and was commissioned by the Philadelphia Electric Company, also known as PECO, in June 1967. This has since been undergoing decommissioning since 1974 and is currently in It's called the safe store designation, which means there's nothing left, there's no fuel left, it's all in dry cask storage. It was an experimental design, as I mentioned, and it generated up to 200 megawatts of electricity. And the neat thing was that the reactor utilized high temperature helium gas as its coolant, compared to traditional heavy water or light water reactors we see today. And this is on the Peach Bottom Atomic Power Station complex, and it sits to the left of the operating Peach Bottom 2 and 3. Now we'll go through some of the active nuclear power plants in Pennsylvania. So we have the Limerick Generating Station in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. This is owned by Constellation Energy Generation, and it can produce up to 2,317 megawatts of electricity, supplied by 2 General Electric boiling water reactors. Unit 1 came online on February 1st, 1986, and was followed by Unit 2 on January 8th, 1990. As you can see, it has 2 giant natural draft cooling towers, which can be seen for miles around the Limerick area and Montgomery County. And they draw the cooling water from the Schuylkill River, which it is situated next to. The next power station is the Susquehanna Steam Electric Station in Berwick, Pennsylvania. This is owned by Talon Energy and Allegheny Electric Cooperative Incorporated, but Talon Energy is the company who operates it. They produce combined up to 2,500 megawatts of electricity with 2 General Electric boiling water reactors inside a Mark II containment structure. This plant began operation in 1983, and again, it uses 2 natural draft cooling towers. And this station utilizes the Susquehanna River as its cooling source. Then we have the Peach Bottom Atomic Power Station in Delta, Pennsylvania, which is owned by Constellation Energy Generation, and the other 50% is owned by PSE&G Nuclear, but Constellation operates it. It is, as I said previously, it's home to 3 units. The Peach Bottom Unit 1 was the high-temperature gas-cooled reactor. And these 2 reactors are General Electric boiling water reactors, and they produce up to 2,770 megawatts of electricity. This one utilizes mechanical draft towers, which you can kind of see right there, as well as the Susquehanna River and discharging back into it instead of using the natural draft tower. Our next station is the Beaver Valley Power Station, located in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, which is actually not too far from where the Shippingport Atomic Power Station was located. This is owned by the Vistra Corporation, and it was previously owned by First Energy, which I believe in 2018 they had to file for bankruptcy, so Vistra bought it from them. These are 2 Westinghouse pressurized water reactors, which generate around 1,800 megawatts of electricity. And you can see they use 2 natural draft cooling towers, as well as drawing the water from the Ohio River as its cooling source. And this actually cooling tower was upgraded, as you can see why it doesn't have that little donut around it. There are many different nuclear incidents around the US, around the world, but the most famous one in the US at least was the 3 Mile Island nuclear disaster, which was the largest scale commercial nuclear accident in US history, which occurred on March 28, 1979 in the Unit 2 system of 3 Mile Island. This was caused by a faulty valve, misleading instrumentation, and operator error, and it really shook the trust of the American people in nuclear energy and led to widespread fear of it, and a plethora of new regulations and safety requirements, which is why it's a very, very expensive process to build a new nuclear plant, and why there's only been really one or 2 new ones since this accident. Almost all of the plants that were on order after this were canceled, and the only one that really stuck through was Vogtle in Georgia, units 3 and 4, which were just completed They utilize a Westinghouse AP1000 system, which is state-of-the-art, brand new technology. The economic impacts of nuclear energy in Pennsylvania are very good, and the 4 active power plants provide over $10 million in taxes to the respective localities. Nuclear power plants also offer the highest median pay of any type of power generation plants. So you can see fossil fuel plants lie around 100,000, while nuclear plants lie around 120,000. So definitely a nice difference. And these nuclear power plants employ well over 3,000 workers in a variety of trades across Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, the future of nuclear looks really bright, as our Peach Bottom Unit 2 is licensed until 2054. So I believe that will be well covered into the future. You can see Limerick 1 and 2 are licensed to 2044 and 2049. And Susquehanna Steam Electric 2042, 2044. So well into the future. And some exciting news for some is that the 3 Mile Island Unit 1, as I mentioned, is set to reopen in 2028. And that's owned by Constellation. And they'll be selling the power to power Microsoft's AI data center. So nuclear energy is definitely on the rise. The public approval of nuclear energy is at the highest it's been in decades, especially since these accidents such as the Fukushima Daiichi disaster in 2011 and Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, of course. It's around 55% of people strongly or somewhat favoring it, only 44% opposing. In Pennsylvania specifically, the Pennsylvania legislature announced in 2024 that they will be relaunching the bipartisan, bicameral Nuclear Energy Caucus, which is definitely a good thing to promote new types of nuclear in Pennsylvania, such as small modular reactors, and maybe putting to use some of the plants that have been shut down. And I really think it's the best option to fortify our electrical grid, especially with the exponential increase in power demands due to AI and all of that other stuff. So I just wanted to thank you for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.